Welcome to the Smarmy Grin Podcast, episode number 20. On tonight's podcast, I'll be talking about the NFL weekend and a little bit of the NBA. I will also be talking about Halloween Sunday night. Yes, this was my Halloween weekend, and I want to talk about probably one of the best Oktoberfest beers that I've had in a very, very long time. That happened on Sunday night. And on the vent segment, the bitching, the moaning, I will be talking about, or venting about, or bitching about, or moaning about writing under the influence. Yes, people, when you're on Facebook, do not write under the influence. WUTI. You shouldn't be doing that on Facebook, and I will explain on the vent. So let's get this show started on the Smarmy Grin Podcast. What's up, guys? What's going on? It's your boy JL. Welcome back to the Smarmy Grin Podcast, episode number 20. Happy Halloween! Happy Halloween! Happy Halloween! It was Halloween weekend. Tonight is Monday night, October 31st. Halloween. And why am I home? If that's what you're wondering. Honestly, why should I not be on a Halloween night? I can't do this whole partying thing, Halloween partying thing anymore. It's too crazy out there now. It's a lot crazier than when I was younger. I used to do it all the time. It was a lot of fun. But over commercializing of this, what really should be a holiday, but we all know, we all celebrate it as a holiday, but over commercializing of this day of Halloween, everywhere you go now, if you want to go out on Halloween night, have a good time, chances are there's going to be a cover charge everywhere you go, regardless of where you go. If it's like in a downtown area, most likely you will encounter a cover charge, which is kind of messed up, man. It's Halloween, you know? So that's why I don't do Halloween anymore. I'd rather just go a couple of nights before, go out for Halloween and have a few beers with my friends, or after, like a night after. So, and that's what I did this weekend. I just did that, went out, I watched a couple of NFL games. I watched a couple of football games, and I also watched the World Series. Been watching a little bit of the NBA over the weekend. It's an interesting season so far. The Cavaliers and the Warriors, they're stumbling right out of the gate. To me, it looks like it's just tired legs. I'm thinking that by December, these two teams in particular are going to be doing better, playing better. But right now, it looks like they're just tired. They don't have any legs under them. So I'm assuming by December, late December, and early next year, these two teams will be in playoff mode. Kevin Love just got injured. He's out with a knee injury, another knee injury. So who knows what's going to happen there and his recovery and when he's coming back. So I watched a few games. I went to actually a Magic game as you guys know how much I love my Magic, sarcastically speaking. But as I take a sip of water, I went to the game. I got some really good tickets. I got them from work. My boss hooked me up with some really, really good seats. And I was extremely lucky because I was only like 16, or actually about 10 rows back from the Spurs bench. And even though Ginobili didn't play all that much, it was a back-to-back game, I wanted to see the man play because this might be his last season in the NBA. And that's the only reason why I went to the game. I didn't go there to watch the Magic. I went there to see Ginobili play. And I wanted to see Pops too, Popovich, the coach, the Spurs coach, if you're not familiar with who he is. But if you are an NBA fan like I am, you most likely are familiar with Pops. But it was a good game up until halftime, and then the Magic just blew them out of the water. I was extremely surprised by that. But at the same time, the Spurs were coming back. Actually, they were on a back-to-back nights. They played the Heat the night before, if I remember correctly. And that was a tough game for them and went to the wire. But I went to the game, and it was really cool to see Ginobili play. Like I said, he didn't play too many minutes. He really didn't play that well. But it was cool to see a legend like that up close. It was cool to see him up close like that. I wanted to see him. I wanted to play. This whole time, all these years, I seriously kicked myself in the behind for not going to any of those Spurs games when they've come to town in the past with Tim Duncan and Tony Parker and Ginobili in their prime. If I could go back, like, I would definitely do that over and see those games with these guys in their prime. But I didn't do it, so I wanted to get to catch a glimpse of Ginobili before he retires. And it's the same way that I feel about Dirk Nowitzki. When the Mavericks come to town, I'm definitely going to get tickets and go watch him play because I want to see him before he retires. So all these guys that I've been watching for the last 15, 16 years that are my age now, they're all retiring. So it's kind of sad to see that. But what an honor and what a pleasure to have watched all these guys play in the NBA and to be a big fan of theirs because they're just great players. And the tons of entertainment that Ginobili and the Spurs have given me over the past has been amazing. Also with the Dallas Mavericks and Nowitzki and a bunch of other players that have retired as well. But seeing somebody up close like that, basically he's a genius on the court. He is probably one of the, to me, my personal opinion, I think he's one of the top 5 guards. And a lot of people will disagree with me on that. But if you look at his highlight package, this guy was just amazing. Great passer, great defender, great shooter, a great teammate, class act all around, just like Tim Duncan and Popovich. So my hat's off to Ginobili. It was really cool to see you play there, Manu. And what was really cool was the two people that were sitting in front of me, a dad and his son wearing the Manu shirt. The kid had to be like 10 years old. And the father, of course, he was probably my age. But the kid was out there just yelling and screaming, Manu, Manu. And it was just really cool, man. It was really cool to see the younger generation appreciate a guy like Manu like that. And it was really cool to see his dad wearing a Scola shirt. But it was cool that his dad was there, and I'm sure the reason why his kid knows about Ginobili and Scola is because of them, because he introduced them to the game and to these players. So it was an honor being there to watch the Ginobili. I had such a great time at the game just watching him play. Even if he sat on the bench for the most part, I still had fun watching him play and interact and seeing him interact with Pops and seeing him interact with his players, so his teammates and all that. So it was really, really cool. Now onto the NFL real quick. Wow, man, this has been a weird season so far as professional sports. You had Hayward, who injured his leg opening night, and this past weekend, now you had Heath Miller, who took an awkward hit in the end zone, came down awkwardly on his leg. He dislocated his kneecap. It was an awful injury. ESPN and all these other channels kept replaying this awful injury, which I didn't want to watch, and I didn't see it. I just watched when he was at the peak of his jump when he was going after the ball, and that's when I stopped. I can't look at that stuff, man. It's just, I don't need to see it. I don't need to see the man's pain, period. But anyway, I didn't know that this injury was going to be as bad as it ended up being. Obviously, I believe he broke his leg, but right after the game, not even after the game, after the injury, they took him to the ER. They had to operate on his leg, and if they didn't do it quickly, he would have lost his leg. That is just crazy. Crazy to me. I've never seen that in the NFL before. The Hayward injury was gruesome, and this was even worse. And then when you hear news that Heath Miller almost lost his leg or was on the verge of losing his leg, it's just crazy, man. It's really, really crazy. And you feel bad for Heath Miller for sustaining such an awful injury, because he's done for the year, and he might be done in his career, and that's really, really sad. So I know that a lot of people, the whole kneeling thing, I know it's very controversial. A lot of people have their own opinions, and a lot of people stop watching the NFL because of it. But when you see an injury like that, man, regardless of what these guys do on the field, if they're kneeling or not or whatever, I'm not going to sit there and wish all these guys some awful injury or some ill will. It's just disgusting to even think that. And it was just an awful play. So I'm hoping that he will recover from this. And I don't know if he's going to come back and play. It would be nice to see him to come back and play for the NFL, but I doubt it. But, man, I'm hoping for the best for him. It was just an awful, awful injury. Take another sip of water real quick. I don't know why I'm so... Oh, yes, I do know why, because I had those beers last night. Of course, I'm thirsty. But anyways, so I watched that. I watched a couple of games. Watched some highlights with the Saints. The Saints are looking really, really good. I finally have a running game. They had a great game yesterday. And Drew Brees is amazing. Honestly, he's an all-time great, man. I don't know how that guy is doing it at the level that he's doing it, and he's been doing it for such a long time. It's incredible. It's incredible. Him and Tom Brady. As much as I dislike Tom Brady, man, that guy is incredible. The dude has been in the league for 17 years and playing at a high level. The same thing with Drew Brees. It's amazing to watch these old guys just playing the way that they're playing. Seeing that, I saw the Steelers. The Steelers this year have a really good team. This kid, J.J. Watt's brother, that kid's a stud. And Shazier's a stud. I think he's the second-year defensive player. The Steelers have a really, really good team, man. If Big Ben stays healthy for the next couple of years, I can see them going to the Super Bowl and winning another Super Bowl. So they look good. Deshaun Watson looks awesome. He's a good-looking rookie, man. That guy's arm reminds me of Randall Cunningham. But he is so smart in the pocket. And this kid doesn't give up. He put up 38 points against Seattle? That was a great game. You know, as that game is going along, I'm sitting at home stuck watching the Buccaneers because I have to, because it's a regional game, so I have to watch that god-awful team. Instead, I should have been watching the Seahawks and the Texans. What a great game that was. And man, seriously, they need to stop with these regional games, because even the people who are fans of these teams that suck, they don't want to sit there and watch their suck-ass team play. Because I know that's the way I am. I don't want to sit there and watch my awful team play. So, I mean, I had to put up with that the other night watching the Magic play the Spurs. But anyways, these regional games are just ridiculous. I want to see the best games with the best teams on TV. So that's what I want to see. I don't want to see no regional games with those awful teams, man. It's just a poor execution of these games on the NFL. As far as I'm concerned, on the NFL part, so on the NFL end of it. So it's man, I'm sitting at home and I'm watching the Buccaneers get their butts kicked, and I'm like, oh my god, man, this is just awful. I'm sitting there and I'm like, I wish I could watch like Seattle and the Texans or something else besides this game, because that Panthers Buccaneers game. I mean, even though the Panthers won that game, they looked awful too. It's not like they lit up the place offensively. They didn't lit it up. So both teams just looked awful. It was just a trash game all around. So I don't want to sit there and watch that crap. I want to watch something else more entertaining. I watch sports to be entertained, not to be bored to death. So they need to stop with this with all these regional teams. If the teams really stink, then they need to stop showing all these teams. But that was basically my whole weekend in a nutshell. And then last night, I want to segue into the Oktoberfest beer that I had last night. So last night, after I started watching the Steelers-Lions game, which was the Sunday night game. So I'm sitting at home. I'm kind of bored because I've been watching football all day long. And then my cousin bailed out on me at the last minute. Thanks, cuz. So he bailed out on me because he was hungry. So he bailed out on me. We were supposed to go hang out and watch this game together at one of the local bars here. So he bails out on me, and I was like, you know what? I can't stay in the house anymore, man. I have to get out. So I ended up leaving, and I went to my local little pub. It's not really a local one, but it's a pub that's close enough to my house that I can drive to it and all that. So, and it's not really far out of the way. So, and I usually go there every Sunday night on my bike ride. I usually just have one beer and just take off from there and come back home on my Sunday, because I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about my Sunday night rides, which are my favorite. I love going on my Sunday night rides. On my bike rides, my bicycle, not my motorcycle, but bicycle. So it's a great exercise. And then at the end of the ride, or almost end of the ride, I basically reward myself, and I go to the pub and grab a beer, sit down, drink, and then just leave and go home. So I was so bored out of my mind that I was like, you know what? It was cold outside, so I couldn't ride my bike. I was like, I'm just going to head over to the pub and grab a beer. And when I got there, they had, let me see if I can get this name. It's not an Edinger beer. I don't think that was the name of the beer. I believe it was Einger or something like that. Let me pull up the name. And it's a German beer. It's an Oktoberfest beer, and it's probably one of the best beers. Ayinger. Am I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Ayinger or Einger. I'm assuming it's probably Einger. So it's a German beer. It's one of the best Oktoberfest beers that I've ever had in my life, and this is why I love going to this pub. Because they always have something different like this. They have another beer that's like on my top 3 beers too. It's another delicious German beer. But this Oktoberfest beer honestly, this beer is probably, I would have to say it is my favorite, and it's probably the best Oktoberfest beer that I've had. So I got a pint. As soon as you put your lips on it, not to quote old school, once it hits your lips, but seriously though, once it hits your lips, and then you smell that aroma of the caramel and all these different flavors, because you can smell it right off the top, right off the head. You're like, oh my God, it smells so good. And this is one of the best Oktoberfest beers that I've ever had in my life. Delicious, and I can't wait to get there. And I can't wait to go back to my little pub next Sunday night and have another one, because it was delicious and absolutely made my whole night, and it absolutely made my whole weekend. It was so good. So I had that. I was drinking that, and at the same time, I was watching the Astros play my Astros, because I'm an Astros fan. So I'm hoping, I hope they win it. Hoping the Astros win it. Hope they pull it off. What a great game that was. Back and forth, back and forth. I'm sitting there watching a game. We're down 4-1, I'm sorry. And out of nowhere, bam, we tie it up with not a grand slam, but a 3-run home run. And I'm sitting there at the bar all excited. And then before you know it, I turn around and we're down by 3 runs, because the Dodgers went up 7-4 at that point. And I was so bummed that I finished my beer. And actually, I didn't finish it. I still had about quarter of the beer left. I actually started watching the Steelers game because I was so upset. I was like, oh, please don't Astros, please no. So anyways, I'm sitting there just watching the Steelers game. I didn't want to look at the Astros game because at that point we were losing 7-4. So I was like, oh man, I was so bummed out. So I started watching the Steelers game, and that was a good, entertaining game. But it was more of a defensive game, and I love defensive games, but my mind wasn't with that game. My mind was still stuck on the Astros score. So I finished my beer, and I just got I don't know, man, I got a little bit disappointed. So I finished my delicious beer, said goodbye to the Karate Kid. That's what I call the bartender because of his last name. So I said goodbye to the Karate Kid, and I walked out the door, and on my way home I was. Then I wake up this morning, and I look at the highlights, and the Astros won. And it was back and forth all game long. What an amazing, amazing game that was. God, that was such a great game. Probably one of the best World Series games that I've seen in a long, long time. But it was just a great weekend. I had a really, really good weekend. My weekend really doesn't start till Sunday night, and that's when I go on my bike rides. I don't usually go out on Fridays because I work the next day, and then on Saturday night, I'll go out maybe once in a while, but not really. I usually do my partying that Sunday night. But it's great to have football back. It's great to have the NBA back. It's great to have Halloween back. I absolutely love this time of the year. It's my favorite time of the year. We're just now getting cooler weather. We just got it earlier in the week, which is fantastic. I absolutely love the cooler weather. Amazing, amazing, especially when you live in a place that's constantly hot and constantly humid. And when you get these cold weather breaks, it's just the best. So this time of the year is my favorite time of the year. So I had an awesome, awesome weekend. So I couldn't ask for a better weekend, and that Iyengar Oktoberfest beer just topped it off. Let me take a little bit of sip of water here real quick. Oh, man. It tastes so good. You can probably hear it in my voice. My voice is kind of like going in and out. It's been like that all night. So, on this final segment, the vent, the moaning, the bitching. On the vent segment, the Smarmy Podcast, the vent, the bitching, the moaning. I want to talk about writing under the influence when you're on Facebook. WUTI. Yes, people, do not start writing under the influence when you're on Facebook. So let me explain to you what happened to me the other night when I was on Facebook. So I found a picture that I tagged a friend of mine, with, and it's a picture that I took at in one of my trips at one of the local international airports. And the store that I saw at the international airport had her last name. And I completely forgotten about this picture. My trip was over a year and a half ago now. Over a year ago, really. So, and I completely forgot about my picture. And I was, when I took it, I was like, man, I need to send this to my friend because this is her last name. And she would definitely get a kick of seeing a retail store with her last name at an airport. So I put this picture on I tagged her with the picture on Facebook, and I added a comment basically asking her, did I send you this picture or something along those lines? And a minute later, she sends me back a response. No, I didn't get it. And I was like, oh man, really? I was like, I told her, I probably didn't because I completely forgot about this picture. So we started commenting on this picture, and she was like, well, it's good to know that I have a store somewhere. Maybe I can get a discount, or maybe I'm owed some money because of my name and all that, or some rights to the name. And I just started laughing. We were just joking, playing along. And I was telling her about my experience that when I went on my trip 3 years ago in Central America, in one of the airports, I saw a rent-a-car place with my last name. And I just told her how funny it was that I saw that rent-a-car place, and apparently my name carries no weight with that rental-car company. And she started laughing, and she's like, well, apparently this store that you found that has my last name carries no weight either. So we were just basically poking fun of our last names and the places that we saw them at. And out of nowhere, one of my relatives, a close relative of mine, let's just say a maternal relative, makes a comment about my basically my last name and her last name that we both have in common. And she starts going off on this tangent about the history of our last name, that our last name is from this side of Spain, and blah blah blah, and then how like a deceased family member said that the owners of this rental-car place that I saw said that they were basically they were family members of ours, and blah blah blah. And at this point, my friend texts me. She didn't text me on or make any comments on Facebook. She texted me on my phone, and she's like, "Hey, what's wrong with your family member?" So I explained to her, because I know this person really well. I go, this particular family member has a tendency to write under the influence on Facebook. So my friends started laughing. So I went on Facebook again, and I just wrote, what just happened? That's what I wrote on there. I posed that question. What just happened? Because I was completely annoyed by all of that. Not only did this family member start spewing off about the history of the last name and from where it was, but then this particular person brought up a deceased family member that our family cared about and loved, who passed away like 13 years ago. And why anybody in their right mind would bring up a deceased family member to make a point? I don't understand that, people. Why do people bring that up? I'm assuming the only reason people bring that up is because of attention. And this is the only reason why I see this. And this kind of thing really bothers me about this particular family member, because when they get inebriated and they're writing under the influence, this is a common issue. So I don't get that. Why do you? I understand you're hammered at home and you're writing on Facebook. Hey, we all do that. But why bring up a deceased family member into the conversation about a conversation that was lighthearted, that was basically speaking about our last names in a humorous way, not in like a sad way of bringing up like a deceased family member into it. I just don't get that kind of thinking, man. It is so freaking frustrating. And I had to delete the comment because it bothered me so much. And I was telling my friend about it, and she agreed with me. And she was like, don't let it get to you, because, you know, that's how people are, I guess. But it does get to me, and it really does bother me. Because if you have a deceased family member, why would you bring him up? Regardless of when they passed, you bring them up for their anniversary and you say something sweet like, I miss so-and-so during a particular anniversary or during the holidays or something like that. And that's it. But you don't bring them up over some stupid conversation that we were having on Facebook, which is absolutely ridiculous, man. I don't get this. But the fact that this person is a close relative of mine, a maternal relative, let me put it that way, it bothers me because this person should know better. And this person should refrain from using any of our deceased family members' name to be used in any kind of comment that has nothing to do with their anniversary of their death or holiday or anything like that. I just don't get it, man. It was completely uncalled for, and I just thought I don't like things like that. I don't like when people bring up, especially my family members, bring up my deceased family, my loved ones, my deceased family members, like when my mom passed away a few years back, or when another close relative of mine passed away, like this relative of mine that passed away 13 years ago. So I don't like that stuff, man. I don't know why people do this, and I'm assuming it can only be for attention. And I hate to be so critical and judgmental, but at the same time, you have to know better. You shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. You shouldn't be. If you're inebriated, great. Post some like funny things or whatever. Or just talk about a funny topic, but don't get on there and start bringing up like dead family members. That is just weird, man. It is absolutely weird, and I don't get that. So I've never understood that. I've never understood why this person does that, and it really does bother me because it comes off in a bad way. It comes off as I don't know, man, as attention seeking, really. That's what it comes off as. So I might be wrong. Maybe you guys can correct me on this, but just write your comments down on the comment section on my YouTube channel and underneath this video podcast. But just give me your opinion. Let me know what you think about this whole matter and situation, and if you guys have family members like that, and what do you guys do to prevent things like this happening? Or how do you guys feel about it? Do you guys feel the same way as I do about it? Because it really does bother me, man. I don't like that. If you have a deceased family member, let them be, let them rest. And that's it. You don't have to bring him up. To me, grieving somebody is something that it's private and personal, and you should do it in a private way, in a private manner. Not like put it on Facebook or bring their name up in whatever conversation you're having. Unless if it's like in a lighthearted way. Like, hey, I remember so-and-so used to like this. That's cool, man. You know, that's cool. But in the way that it was brought up during my conversation on Facebook with my friend was completely unnecessary. And I don't like things like that. So please, like, tell me how you feel. Am I wrong on this for feeling this way? Or am I right? Or maybe I'm neither. But I would like to get your opinion, so please let me know down low. And that's the end of the Smarmy Grin Podcast number 20. This is your boy JL. Thank you guys for listening. Again, I kept it under 40, so I'm doing really well. But I'm happy that I'm back. I'm happy that I made another podcast for you guys. I hope you guys had an awesome Halloween weekend. And I hope you guys have an awesome Halloween Monday night. And I will talk to you guys later on the Smarmy Grin Podcast. Alright guys, I'll see you later. See ya!